All right.
Caitlin asked for prayers, but we can pray later.
We'll just, what do you call that? Addendum. We'll also pray for Emma and her illness. All right, DP, do we have the slideshow from last week?
You might give me that computer back real quick.
What's that?
You might give me that computer.
I can take it to him, Brent.
All right. Well, last week we went through some sort of what I call miscellaneous things. We finished up talking about reconciling your checkbook and the things you have to do to do that. And then, well, I guess first we started off with savings ideas, like ways that you can make your money go further. And one thing that I didn't mention when I was talking about coupons and stuff, but another one thing was Rakuten is another thing that you put online and can help, like with getting, that's kind of your rebates now type thing, instead of the way it used to be where you mailed in rebates and got checks back and all that. But anyway, we talked about that. We talked about reconciling checkbook, savings ideas, and then like some credit reports, annuities, those kind of things to kind of wrap up just a bunch of different aspects of finance. This week we're going to go into giving. And we're still working on the presentation here, I think.
We don't know where Dave's page is.
Let me see if I can see it. Yeah, it's not the debt one.
Is it PDF?
Yeah, it's a PowerPoint. Yeah, not seeing it. Okay, well, we'll just kind of go ahead and get started without the presentation up there. So throughout this whole series, we've talked about giving as being one of the main principles of Christian finance. Of course, the Money Matters series, that's one of the 5 things that they provide, and then I talked about it as well. We're going to go back and do a little bit more with giving here in this class. So what we have discussed so far is that giving is a commandment from God.
Is that it, Brent?
No, that's the other one, I think. I don't think that one. Yeah, that's the old one.
We can't find it.
Okay. Well, at this point, we'll just roll then. It'll be okay. Go back to the scriptures, and then we'll just use the scriptures. All right, so anyway, we talked about how giving is a command. We see this especially in the letters of Paul to the Corinthians, where he gives some guidance about giving for a specific cause there, for a specific reason there. We talked about how giving is an act of sacrifice. The Jews were commanded to give what? 10%, right? They were to give a tithe. Or I guess is the way you say that. And that was on everything. Like, not what we think of as like, oh, I earned $100, I'm giving $10. It was like every year they gave a tenth of what they had. But we didn't actually go to a whole lot of scriptures that talked about that. I just kind of talked about it as we went. So we're going to hit some scriptures here. So let's start with Numbers 18:21 through 24 and Deuteronomy 14:27 through 29. Oh, sorry. I dropped my thing there. And that's Luke. We're not there. There we are. No, we're not. That's not Numbers either. All right. I'll read Numbers 18 real quick. 18:21 through 24. And to the sons of Levi, behold, I have given all the tithe in Israel for an inheritance in return for their service which they perform, the service of the tent of meeting. And the sons of Israel shall not come near the tent of meeting again, lest they bear sin and die. Only the Levites shall perform the service of the tent of meeting, and they shall bear their iniquity. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations, and among the sons of Israel they shall have no inheritance. For the tithe of the sons of Israel, which they offer as an offering to the Lord, I have given to the Levites for an inheritance. Therefore I have said concerning them, they shall have no inheritance among the sons of Israel. All right, and then Deuteronomy 14:27 through 29.
I can read that.
One. And the Levite that is within thy gates, thou shalt not forsake him, for he hath no portion nor inheritance with thee. At the end of every 3 years thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thine increase in the same year, and thou shalt lay it up within thy gates. And the Levite, because he hath no portion nor inheritance with thee, and the sojourner, and the fatherless, and the widow that are within thy gates shall come, and shall eat and be satisfied, that Jehovah thy God may bless thee in all the work of thy hand which thou dost.
Okay, so this is still in the American Standard. I think this is all what Dave pulled last week when he accidentally got the American Standard instead of the New American. But so those two, what do those two scriptures tell you? I mean, there's one obvious thing, I think, what we're talking about, right? The Israelites are to give a tenth, and then who gets it? The Levites. So would this be a premise where you see that people who are serving God get paid, so to speak? I would say so. So that's kind of like the first instance, I think, of that, where we see basically the church, Israel in this case, providing for the workers that are serving the Lord, right? So that's something else I think you see in this passage. But the main thing that I wanted to emphasize was the tithing there, that they were commanded to do that. All right, Deuteronomy 14:22 through 26.
Thou shalt surely tithe all the increase of thy seed, that which cometh forth from the field year by year. And thou shalt eat before Jehovah thy God, in place that he shall choose, to cause his name to dwell there, thy tithe of grain and thy new wine, and all thine oil, and all the firstlings of thy herd and thy flock, that thou mayest learn to fear Jehovah thy God always, and always be long for thee, so thou art not able to carry it, because the place is too far from thee, which Jehovah thy God shall choose to set his name there. When Jehovah thy God shall bless thee, then shall turn it to money, and bind up the money in thy hand, and thou shalt go to the place which Jehovah thy God shall choose. And thou shalt bestow the money for whatsoever thy soul desireth, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or whatsoever thou askest of thee, and thou shalt thee before Jehovah thy God, thou shalt rejoice, and thou and thy household.
All right, so once again, here we see the tithing thing and all that. Well, this is a little bit of an interest passage. What does this passage, well, let me rephrase that. Does this make you think of anything from the New Testament? Whenever you read this passage. It made me. Anybody?
We're to give everything to God.
Right. But there's a specific passage in the New Testament that it made me think about. Anybody remember Jesus with the money changers? And throwing the tables over? It made me think about that. So I think this is where that comes from, that God's saying, if you're traveling from a long ways, you can exchange and buy your stuff there. But what were they doing? What were they doing in Jerusalem that was at the temple that was a problem? It wasn't the exchanging that was a problem. Yeah, they were ripping people off. They were being dishonest. We talked about that before, right? What does God think about dishonest scales? Doesn't like it very much, does he? So that's what that, I don't know if that's exactly right, but that's what that reminded me of. But once again, you see the tithing and the practice and how important it was that God was setting up a system for them to do it. And even for people who couldn't bring an animal from wherever they were because they were traveling too far, he set up a system so that they could do that. All right, so then Matthew 6, 1 through 4.
I guess it's my turn. Take heed that ye do not your righteousness before men to be seen of them, else ye have no reward with your Father who is in heaven. When therefore thou dost alms, sound not a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. Verily I say unto you, they have received their reward. But when thou dost alms, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doth, that thine alms may be in secret, and thy Father who seeth in secret shall recompense thee.
Okay, so what's the point of this passage? Is it saying that nobody should ever see us give? Not at all, right? You're not doing it. What was happening with the Pharisees? They'd make a big flourish of it, right? They'd be like, look at what I'm doing. And in fact, we're going to read a scripture that talks about that here in just a little bit when we talk about the widow that gives everything she has. Like, there were people going up and making a show, knowing you could kind of see that they were given a lot and that kind of stuff. So the point isn't to get recognized for giving. Now, at the same time, it is important for people to know that we give, I think. Right? I mean, they need to know that we're doing that. This church...
Especially for our children, they
Yeah.
know that we give.
Mm-hmm.
How are they going to follow?
Right, how they're going to follow our example if they don't know it, yeah. And how is the community going to know what we're doing if we don't tell them, hey, we're doing this? So I don't think it's don't let anybody see what you're doing, but the purpose of it isn't to be seen by others or to get a reward from people. It's to serve God. So I think that's the important thing to see here. Luke 6:30 through 38. This is the one. Is that one right in here? Because I know I'd given him the wrong. Yeah, we got that right. I'd given him the wrong scripture. I think it said 30 to 28. So.
Give to everyone who asks of you, and whoever takes away what is yours, do not demand it back. Treat others the same way you want them to treat you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that for you? Even sinners do the same. If you lend to those whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners in order to receive back the same amount. But love your enemies and do good, and lend expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be the sons of the Most High, for he himself is kind to the ungrateful and evil men. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. And do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Pardon, and you will be pardoned. Give, and it will be given to you. And pour into thy lap thy good measure pressed down, shake together, and the cup runneth over. For by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you in return.
So there's a lot in that little passage, I think. The first thing is that he emphasizes it's not really to I don't know, how would you say this? It doesn't really accrue to your good to give to those you expect to get something back from. Like, you're not really giving whenever you're expecting to get something back. It's more like an exchange, right? Examples of this could be like at Christmas time. We give gifts and we expect to get gifts back from people. But what do we do? We try to give to people who we know we're not going to get anything back from as well, right? Or, there's numerous examples. Usually that's within families, So sometimes families make rules like we're not going to do birthday presents or whatever because we all know that we just give it back and forth. But that's not always the way it goes because it's the thought that counts, right? So, but anyway, I'm not saying one way or another there as far as, everybody likes to get a present and that kind of thing. So that's not a big deal. But what I was trying to say is we'd expect when we give a gift to one of our family members that they might give a gift back to us in similar fashion. So what's good is when we give to somebody without expecting anything in return, and that of course would happen if the person doesn't even know that you gave it to them, like whenever it's truly anonymous. Then that's great to some degree. Like I said, there's some times where it is good to, it's good for people to know that we are raising money for the wells, right? That's a good thing. We want to get that sort of thing out. But it's not to try to gain recognition for us as much as it is for them to know that we're doing that and to get things done.
I think we saw an example of that over the weekend too. That Phillies Karen that guy wasn't expecting nothing, but they got all the.
He got back way more than what he gave up. Yeah, that's true.
I think it even applies in the terms of when we give something to someone who we expect to then give to someone else or to bless someone else. Like if we are only
What's that? What?
people who these are good people and they are going to go ahead and
Yeah.
bless other people.
I think that the term they call that is pay it forward, right? Is that, whenever people, hey, somebody gave to me, I'm going to give to you. Yeah, and give.
We only give to people who we expect to do that. Like
We have a term for that, people who are deserving,
yes,
right? We determine who's deserving,
Yeah.
Right.
and this kind of shatters all that.
Right. Yeah, you give without. You give. I don't think he says it here, but you actually give to people. Well, but love your enemies. So he does say enemies specifically here.
Even God gives to evil men.
Right. Yeah. God blesses everyone to some degree, for sure. The other thing we see here down in this is a common verse, probably. And do not judge, and you will not be judged, and do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Pardon, and you will be pardoned. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. They will pour into your lap. So that kind of indicates that we're going to be judged in a way based on what we do, right? How we see it. This kind of goes back to some of that discussion that we had, about if you take certain verses out of context, it seems like that would be one of the most important things. Jesus talks a lot about. Let's see, do I have it down? We're going to read that even. I don't think so. So Jesus talks about whenever separating the goats and the sheep, and it's all about what did you do? Did you help others? Did you go visit the people in prison? Did you help the widows and the orphans? It's all about what you do. Give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down. So if you take those verses by themselves, they almost sound as though we can, earn our salvation, do a lot of good deeds. But that's, of course, taking that out of context because you have to have all the passages that talk about how we're saved in order to get there. But this emphasizes how important it is that we are generous in giving, right? I think that's what the point is. All right, now let's get to that one scripture I just mentioned, Luke 21, 1 through 4.
And he looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw a poor widow putting in 2 small copper coins. And he said, truly I say to you, this poor widow put more in than all of them. For they, all out of their surplus, put it into the offering. But she, out of her poverty, put in all that she had to live on.
All right, so the widow, Jesus says, gave more than the others. Did she give more quantity-wise? Not even close. Yeah, not even close. But she gave out of her poverty while they were giving their excess. They had more than enough. She didn't have enough, and she gave out of that. So that was the emphasis. I also don't think that I don't think this can be used to say that, like I talked about last week or the week before, I forget which week it was, but where I don't think you would use this as an example to say you should go sell all you have or give everything you have. I think, the instances where we see people giving all they have or selling off property, those are special circumstances that we see. And we talked about if everybody did that in the church, then we'd have one time where we could do something and then that'd be it. Like we'd be done because everybody's infrastructure, everybody's finances would be blown up. So I don't think that that's what it's talking about. And if we read the scriptures properly, I think we can see that that's not what's being talked about there. But the emphasis here is it's not how much we have to give, but giving appropriately and giving generously. For that. Now then, how are we to give? Is there a certain way that we have to give?
Joyfully.
Joyfully, yeah, that's one of the things, yeah.
Abundantly.
Is there a certain time that we have to give? Yep, anytime there's a need, yep. There is a specific instance, and we're going to talk about that a little bit here, where Paul talks about how to take up a collection for the church. Some people would, I think, argue that that means that that's the only time that money can be collected for the church. I don't think that that's the case, because I think we see other instances, examples in the Bible where that's not the case, like they're given at different times. So I think that contradicts it. But we do know, and this is where we get our practice for giving on the first day of the week. But the question is, as we read this, why did he say that? Why was it that they were going to collect it on the first day of the week? 1 Corinthians 16, 1 and 2.
Now the concerning collection for the saints, as I directed the churches of Galata, and so do you also. On the first day of every week, each one of you is to put aside and save, as he may prosper, so that no one collections may be made when I come.
Okay. So, the collection was to be taken on the first day of the week. Why do you think Paul said that?
Convenience. It's when people are together.
Because that's when they gathered together, right? That's what we see in the scriptures. They gathered together on the first day of the week, so they were already going to be together. So when was the collection to be taken up? On the first day of the week. Why did he say that? He gives the reason, right? So that no collections be made when I come, right? So that's already there. It's already ready. So I think this is a great example, and I think it's good that we do it. But there's other examples, like I said, that if we went other places where we see certainly that they were giving at other times. I mean, well, in the very beginning of Acts, the people were coming and laying their stuff at the apostles' feet. So there's other examples out there. 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 13. There's no way that you can do a study on giving without reading this passage, right? Sorry, Jimmy. There you go.
Now this I say, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must do as he has purposed in his heart, not grudgingly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that always having all sufficiency in everything, you may have an abundance for every good deed. As it is written, he scattered abroad, he gave to the poor, his righteousness endures forever. Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in everything for all liberality, which through us is producing thanksgiving to God. For the ministry of this service is not only fully supplying the needs of the saints, but is also overflowing through many thanksgivings to God. Because of the proof given by this ministry, they will glorify God for your obedience to your confession of the gospel of Christ and for the liberality of your contribution to them and to all.
All right. Go ahead. You can finish it. That's fine.
Okay. While they also, by prayer on your behalf, yearn for you because of the surpassing grace of God in you. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift.
All right. So once again, we see a lot here. Now, here's the interesting thing. It talks about those who give will receive blessings. Is this, what's it called again, Jimmy? I always forget. The prosperity gospel, is that what this is talking about here? That if you give, you're promised to get more? What kind of blessings is it talking about? This is something that I've talked about before. A lot of times when we see the Bible, God talking about people being blessed for giving, he doesn't mean blessed materially. What he's talking about
the seed of in this context of people hearing the gospel and receiving it
right.
because of your acts of generosity.
And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier too. They had to know where this was coming from in order for that to function, right? It couldn't have been done, like they had to know it was coming from these other churches or from these people in order for it to be that kind of an example. So once again, I think if you putting scriptures together and tying them all together in context, we kind of get that full view of what God's intending for how this works. I'm stumbling over my words some this morning.
Even here, it says that God is able to make all grace abound.
About grace, right?
Not cash.
Right, not cash. Yeah, it's grace. Yeah.
The next part is that you'll have sufficiency. what you need.
Right. Yeah, and that's what Jesus talks about that in the Sermon on the Mount, right? You know, look at the birds and the lilies. You know, they get what they need. We're told we're gonna, you know, God takes care of things. What I'm trying to say there. Better think about what I'm saying before I say it. But a lot of times material blessings do follow when we do that. It does happen, but that's not what's promised here. We shouldn't expect that because we give, we're going to get more out of it. Now, and sometimes things just don't go our way, right?
I think a lot of it has to do with mindset. Like he's specifically saying, be a cheerful giver, in your heart, ahead of time, already purpose what you're going to do. And so you're already content with what you have. Like, okay, I can live on this amount. And part of the blessing of that is I'm at peace with where I am. I'm not feeling like, oh wait, I need to make more because I want to give more and I want to get more. It's
right. You're right. It's what's the point?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it? And that actually leads to my question. What role does Thanksgiving play in our giving?
Everything.
Right? Yeah, that's what it's about. If you're giving begrudgingly, you don't want to give, but you're giving it up, that's not what God's after. He's wanting us to give cheerfully and thankfully, knowing what He's blessed us with. Giving is proof of our service to God. That's what Paul is talking about here. It's proof that we are serving God. And that's why, so what are some practices we should do when we give? I think, of course, we should be willing to give to people in need on the fly and things like that. When it comes to our giving to the church, I know a lot of people just kind of reach in their pocket and give, and that's good, that's fine. But what happens if you're not here? Do you make up for that? Do you still give God what you intended to give to Him? So those are things to consider whenever you're thinking about giving. Like, if you've earned this and you plan to give that much to God, but you're not here for a Sunday, do you still give that at some point? That's important to think about, because just from a personal point of view, are you doing what you're supposed to do for God? And plus, of course, it helps the church whenever somebody gives consistently and you know what's coming in. That helps, but most importantly, it's just that are we doing it purposefully and doing giving what God wants us to do, and not just sort of off the cuff. Not that that's bad; you can do it off the cuff as well, but just be aware that it is supposed to be purposeful and, like you said, and kind of planned out, at least to some degree. It may be that going back to budgeting, it may be that you say, "This is how much I'm going to give to the church, and then this is my budget for other stuff, like to give to other people." If you were budgeting it that way. All right, yeah. Okay, so why don't we give like we should? What are some reasons that people may not give as they should?
What this unexpected thing happened? I broke my arm in a amount of work, or I had this unexpected bill.
Okay, so just too many other places that it's getting pulled for.
Or a
Yeah.
distraction. Like,
Yep.
holy, I can't do it now because
Yep.
I gave up, or I think I need.
Yeah. Well, if you don't put giving up at the top of the list and it's at the bottom of the list, what happens to everything? Yeah. So we don't necessarily make it a priority, or put it in the proper place in our budget. What else? I think you kind of hit it. You didn't say it this way, but we may not be able to meet our other obligations. So if we haven't properly planned it out, so we can't do that. That goes along with incorrect priorities.
A lack of a theology of first fruits. Whenever they gave it,
Yeah, it was supposed to be the best.
always the first of your fruits go to God before anything else. And so in a budget, when you talk about budgeting, I mean, like we do it that way too. We automatically have it calculated in our budget where that money comes out for giving
Yeah.
before anything else. That's the very first thing.
Yeah, and if you remember when I showed the budget, I said the one budget that I had up there didn't have any place for giving. But, and technically, I would put it up at the first thing, like there's your first thing, that's your first thing in your budget, and then go down from there. Now then, the reason that I had that set up, if you remember, was because it was kind of to calculate, okay, what do I have excess, and then from there plan how much of that goes to giving and things. But you may not have excess, so you might have to change the way that you do that. It wasn't to indicate that it wasn't important, was what I was trying to say there. I think we may not understand that it's a commandment of God. I mean, we're commanded to do it. It's not an option. It is a command. Now then, he doesn't, in the New Testament, he doesn't give us the exact number like he did in the Old Testament. He doesn't say a tithe, but the examples are there, right? We see that for sure. Let's see what else. We may not trust that God will take care of us. Right? When you give, you're trusting that God's going to help take care of you, especially if you're giving out of something you need, especially. Okay.
Thankfulness, a lot of times, if we're not feeling thankful, if we aren't focused on being thankful, then we're more focused on, oh, I have all these things that are weighing on me, and I'm not thankful for what I do have, then I don't feel like I can give, because we don't have that mindset. But
Right.
yeah, wait, I need to focus on what I do already have and what has been provided, and then feel able to.
And what I guess as I'm thinking about that, to be thankful, how can we be thankful no matter what? No matter what we're going through. We have many of our members who are struggling through various things. So being thankful for what God's given us is, what's that? I always say that a thankful heart is a happy heart. That's that song, VeggieTale song. A thankful heart is a happy heart. We know that things are going to go badly for us at some point in our lives. Like that's a given. If we make it to be old, we're eventually going to get old and die. If it's something before that, then we're going to have to deal with whatever that is, whatever illness it is, or sudden a crash, or whatever it is. Somebody's going to be dealing with that. So we know our end is not going to be pleasant, no matter what. But we need to be grateful to God for what He's given us and put our faith in what's most important. And that helps us as we use things here to realize that it's God's. Like the thing that we keep saying, it all belongs to God. And so we want to use it wisely, and not that doesn't mean that everything has to go to be given. It doesn't mean that everything has to just be used in a very specific way. We can use some for fun and things like that, but our priorities have to be put correctly, and we have to do it with Thanksgiving, I think. What are the rewards of giving? What are some rewards that we get right away?
Knowing that somebody's off the streets for a night, or that somebody has a hot meal for a day, or somebody has water when they didn't before.
So a sense of satisfaction, yeah, I think.
Or
Accomplishment, yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like, oh, look, I accomplished something for God, or I accomplished something for
Yep. I think they say that giving produces certain chemicals or whatever that make you feel better. I think that's some of it as well.
I think it's also, I don't know exactly how to put it in a term of benefit, but we step out of our own reality. When we get so caught up and focused on our own problems, or because we all have problems, but when we can step out and do something good for someone else, it just really helps us to like
Can help you with, yeah.
I don't know how to put that into an exact one
Well,
more benefit.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. It can help bring you out of your struggles for a moment. Or what about like in everybody here has probably seen, and now I forget what the name of it is, the Jimmy Stewart Christmas. Wonderful Life. Yeah, like he was very giving, right? And whenever he was in trouble, people came and gave to him. Now, once again, that's not what we're to be expecting, right? But in general, oftentimes people who are generous are taken care of whenever they have needs. So people trust you. People, whenever you're giving. Of course, the first thing is it pleases God. It's a command of God, and it pleases Him. And of course, it helps others. You know, we can provide resources. If you're given to the church, it provides resources for the church to continue doing what it does here, and in serving, our places that we serve around the world. For this church specifically, it would be in Ecuador and Haiti mostly, that where we serve, and then in the local area here. It gives a meaningful purpose for making money. Like when we make money, we know some of it's going to help others. That also is important, and I forget if I have this down to say, we may not get to the conclusion here. I was thinking this might be it, but we might carry over just a little bit into next week. But when we talked about planning your financial future so that you do have enough to live on when you're in a retirement, our goal is to be profitable or beneficial to the church all the way until we die. And if we don't have anything saved up, we won't be able to do that when we get to the point where we're no longer able to work. Like we won't have much to give at that point. So to me, I think, so you don't store up with the intention of, well, this will help me to give later. That's not, but you get what I'm saying. It helps us to be profitable throughout our entire lives if we've appropriately planned it out, and to still contribute. And that's not a pun, no pun intended there, but to still contribute to the Lord's work, even whenever we no longer can physically do what we used to do. So that's one thing that I think is important to do. We're supposed to store our treasures in heaven, so that's part of that. You're not putting as much emphasis on here. You're giving it and not putting as much emphasis here. On the news, I saw there were several physical benefits. Those who give are happier, healthier, have fewer illnesses, a greater sense of satisfaction, and typically do not suffer from depression, and they live longer. I don't know if that was scientifically proven or not, but that was on a story I saw, I don't know, several years ago. But anyway, I think that's probably true in the general.
I think a lot of what you just talked about builds our faith. If we are doing something that pleases God, that builds our faith. If we're doing something that we were commanded to do and following the scriptures, that builds our faith.
Yep, for sure.
A lot of it, like, kind of in a side way, but like still kind of directly. Interestingly, when we give, we build our faith because we're doing part of what the Bible says to do, and therefore it will help us with the other parts.
Yep, for sure. All right, well, we're almost out of time, so it would take me more time than what I have to wrap up the conclusion here, but we'll finish this up next week. I don't think it'll probably take the whole class, so either I'm going to have to expand on my conclusion, or we'll kind of do half a class on that and start into something else, which I haven't decided what we're doing. I think I'm supposed to teach for another 6 weeks or so, and I haven't decided exactly what we're doing yet on that, but so next week we'll either finish this, well, we will finish this out, but that'll either be it, or we might start in on something new. But we'll be back in just a few minutes for worship, and thanks everybody for your comments.